I'm Duke Nukem, and you're watching Revenant Evil.
Duke Nukem 3D is known for its somewhat controversial themes, so it may seem a strange fit to see 3D Realms partner up with the historically family-friendly Nintendo to bring us a version of Duke 3D for their then flagship console, the Nintendo 64. But that's exactly what happened back in 1997. Today, I'd like to turn my attention over to Duke Nukem 64 and see what I can dig up. We'll look at the history, censorship, scrapped content, and anything else interesting I can find. Hello everyone, I'm Evil, and today I'd like to invite you to join me as we take a closer look at Duke Nukem 64. I hope you enjoy. The port would be handled by British developer Eurocom, most well known for their arcade-to-console ports based on licensed properties, while publishing duties would fall on GT Interactive. The game would unsurprisingly utilize the build engine, but would come with some significant visual enhancements. For example, the game is now fully 3D rendered, so there's no environmental warping when looking up or down, which is a nice feature. Some cool 3D effects were added to explosions too. And the final boss, known as the Cycloid Emperor, would end up getting a similar 3D treatment, which looks a bit awkward, but it's a cool idea. In July of 1997, N64.com asked GT Interactive's senior communications manager, Dan Harnett, how long the game had been in development, to which he replied around 12 months. And given that the game would release on November 14th, 1997, we can see that the conversion took approximately 15 months to develop. The game would be released almost 2 years after the original shareware PC release, and it would bring with it a host of new changes, such as additional secrets, expanded levels, and new weapons. Let's take a closer look at the game. As this is the first time most Nintendo players were introduced to Duke Nukem, a small cutscene has been added to the start of the game to fill us in on Duke's previous adventures, which isn't anything groundbreaking, but it's a nice touch. Jumping into the first level, we can see that visually, the game has had a graphics overhaul. It looks pretty good in my opinion. As mentioned earlier, the game world is now fully 3D, and we can see Duke's Skycar crash into a building. Whereas on PC, it just sort of explodes. The texture that depicts LA has been changed to a clear sky. In general, textures appear quite blurry on N64. And every mirror in the game has been destroyed or replaced to save on the console's limited resources. But the differences don't stop there. For example, Duke's famous line has been altered to remove the naughty word.
Damn, those alien bastards are gonna pay for shooting up my ride. Damn, those alien scum are gonna pay for shooting up my ride.
That's right, the game has been heavily censored to meet Nintendo's adult content standards. That means nudity, religious references, swearing, and any kind of violence directed at women or dogs have all been removed. And the babes have been given more clothes when compared to their PC counterparts. These changes also mean that the captive babes can no longer be destroyed, so you're unable to spawn in the extra bad guys. You're also given the opportunity to toggle blood off in the options, which is quite typical for Nintendo ports of this time period. Another example of the censorship can be seen in the level Death Row. The chapel area with the hanging monk has been turned into a prison cell. And it's in here we see Hannibal Lecter making a new cameo appearance. The movie theater in level 1 is now showing a film called Uranus Attacks. On the screen, the dancing babe has been replaced with a UFO blowing up a building, similar to the movie Independence Day, which is a clever nod to the alien invasion taking place in the game. But in what could be considered a bit of a weird double standard, while the sexual themes have been removed, the violence has, in some instances, actually been increased. For example, check out these babes between versions. Which one would you say was more extreme? Jeez. You've got to love how Nintendo were like, this has got to go, but this? This is fine. We will also notice that Duke's pistol, and in fact all of his weapons, have had new graphics applied to them. While we're on the subject, let's take a brief look at the weapons of Duke 64. The Mighty Foot, pistol, shotgun, the Shrinker and Expander, pipe bombs, and laser trip bombs all made their way into the game, and all with brand new graphics. However, the Ripper cannon has been replaced by dual-wielding submachine guns. The RPG has been replaced by a grenade launcher, and the Devastator has been replaced by a missile launcher. While similar to the RPG, the missile launcher isn't quite the same. The fire rate is much slower, and in my personal opinion, it just isn't as fun. The freeze thrower is unfortunately missing too, but the port would see the introduction of a new exclusive weapon, the plasma cannon. No, not that one. This weapon is brand new for Duke 64. You can rapid fire by tapping the trigger, or alternatively, by holding the fire button down, you can charge a powerful projectile that basically vaporizes anything in its path. It may be a bit overpowered, but it's still pretty cool. Though how you feel about these changes is entirely subjective. Personally, I love the grenade launcher. It's a lot of fun ricocheting grenades around corners, and is especially useful if you know where all the enemies are. Awesome. But I do miss the Devastator. Ideally, it would have been nice to have kept all of the original weapons and simply had these as additions. But perhaps memory was an issue, who knows. Another cool feature of the game is that several weapons now have different ammo types for the player to pick up. Specifically, the pistol was given dum-dum rounds, which deal significantly more damage than the standard bullets. The shotgun now has explosive shells, and the missile launcher has standard and heat-seeking missiles. In this interview I found on NintendoPlayer.com, Nick Dry, a credited artist on Duke 64, said the different ammo types were inspired by comic book character Judge Dredd.
I am the law!
In the code for the game exists mention to some scrapped ammo types, namely gas grenades and rubber bullets. In the same interview, he states that he can't remember why they were cut, but was likely down to performance, balancing, or there just being too many ammo types in general. In Duke 64, levels aren't divided into episodes. They're played through sequentially, so you could say it plays like one giant episode. The ability to save anywhere is also missing. Instead, we have the option to save upon finishing a level. So it can become quite frustrating if you die towards the end of a stage. Most of the levels from the original 3 episodes are present here, but the levels Teardrops and Spin Cycle have been replaced by Area 51 and Duke Burger from the Atomic Edition, which is a good trade in my opinion. In total, the single-player campaign boasts an advertised 30 levels, but 2 of the levels have been split in 2 in order to provide a save point before bosses. So in the graph, I've decided to count these levels as though they haven't been chopped up, as really they're meant to be part of the same level. Same goes for the Sega Saturn version, which proclaims to have 30 levels. But in reality, if no levels had been split in half, it would actually only have 25. So, in terms of content, this puts Duke 64 ahead of the Sega version. But, thanks to its exclusive episode, the PlayStation version has by far the most levels. Impressive. On top of that, nearly every level has been modified in some way. and many of them have extra sections added. Most of the time these areas are out of bounds to the player, as seen here, but these areas do add a bit of depth to the world. Though sometimes there are additional sections to the level that you can access. For example, in Level 2, known here as Gun Crazy, there's a new Duke Burger restaurant across the street, which I think is really cool. The strip club, however, has been removed. Instead, we have a loading bay. In some areas, there's also some extra geometry added, like this cool car at the start of the first level. There are extra secrets too that often add completely new sections to the level, such as this grocery store, which only exists in Duke 64. And I like how you can see part of the Rabbit Transit level from Gun Crazy, and vice versa when in that level. The amount of changes to the levels is quite vast, and beyond the scope of this video, but if there's enough interest, I may do a video showing off these changes in more detail, so let me know if that's something you'd like to see. The N64 version also brings some changes to the enemies. For starters, the assault troopers and assault captains are now visually indistinguishable, and have been redrawn with bigger eyes and blue armor. Also brought over from the Atomic Edition are protector drones, which are even placed in levels you wouldn't see them in on PC, such as Fusion Station. But strangely, the Pigcock tanks are not present in the game, so they're notably missing from Duke Burger. We're also introduced to the Overlord sentries, which are smaller versions of the Overlord. Interestingly, these wouldn't be seen on PC until World Tour was released in 2016, 19 years after Duke 64 was released. There are a couple of new gameplay mechanics in Duke 64 that I'd like to mention. First of all is the new mechanic, saving the babes. While seeing babes encased in alien gunk isn't anything new, this time, by pressing A on them, we're now able to set them free, and we have a new counter at the end of the level telling us exactly how many we found. It definitely adds some replay value, as some of these babes can be quite hard to find. And it just makes more sense to me. I mean, isn't Duke all about saving the babes?
Nobody steals our chicks and lives.
But unfortunately, the babe saved counter at the end level screen replaces the stats for your best times. The other mechanic I'd like to talk about is how you're now able to destroy enemy corpses. This was always possible to do with explosives, but now any weapon will do the trick. It's only a minor change, but I really like it. It makes the Damn I'm Good difficulty setting way more viable. Sweet. So how does the game control? Well, there's no denying the controls can take some getting used to. The default control scheme, which in my opinion is the best of the bunch, has us using the C buttons to move and the analog stick to look around. The B button is duck and A is interact. To switch items or change weapon, you have to awkwardly stretch your thumb over to the D-pad. To activate an item, you press L. And even with adult hands, this can be difficult to do. There's also an option to switch to a left-handed mode, which ends up feeling even more cumbersome as you now don't have the A and B buttons within reach. There's no way around it. It doesn't matter which control scheme you pick, it's pretty awkward to control. Adapting the mouse and keyboard controls to an N64 controller was clearly a tough task. It's a shame there's no custom button mapping, though I'm not sure how helpful it would be. In the end, I was able to adapt to the controls, but the nature of it is that an N64 controller will never be as intuitive as a mouse and keyboard. I think Duke 64 kicks ass, but what did the critics think at the time of release? Well, looking at the Metacritic page, we can see that Duke 64 is sitting with a 73 Metascore, which is based on reviews from 11 publications, the highest score being a 90, awarded by Electric Playground, and the lowest being a 50 by Game Revolution. Unfortunately, the links are dead, so it's hard to know their exact reasoning. The user score paints a similar picture at 7.4 out of 10. Let's go a bit deeper and look at what some magazines thought of it back in the day. N64 Magazine awarded the game 86%, whereas 64 Magazine awarded it 90%. And in issue 62 of the official Nintendo magazine, they awarded the game 91%, where they boldly state that it's far superior to the PC game. Common criticisms include the censorship, controls, and, well, that the game isn't GoldenEye. I personally think it holds up pretty well after all these years, but I can see where they're coming from. Having 2D sprites as enemies was definitely seen as dated back then, especially when compared to the 3D polygons of games like Turok and GoldenEye, though I don't think this should detract from the fact that the game is awesome in its own right. In regards to performance, the N64 conversion has a fairly solid frame rate. I can't read the exact numbers myself, but going back to that interview with Dan Harnett, he states that the single-player mode runs at a mid-30 to low-40 frame rate. In my experience, the game does run quite smoothly, but it's not without some slowdown in places, mostly when explosions occur on screen, or in big open areas, which I think is to be expected. For the time it was released in, I think it's a fairly solid showing for Nintendo's 64-bit console. It certainly performs leagues better than Total Meltdown. The multiplayer mode in Duke 64 is objectively one of its best features. All you need is an N64, a copy of Duke, 2 controllers, and a friend. You're able to play through the whole game in 2-player co-op, or duke it out with up to 4 players in a head-to-head Duke match. There's even some exclusive multiplayer maps. The maps are Piracy, which is a small section from the level Babeland from the Atomic Edition, which is nice to see. Shame they didn't put the full level in the campaign though. Shaft, which centers around a tall shaft in some sort of alien base. It looks like something out of episode 2. Castle Dukenstein, which is an obvious reference to Frankenstein. It features a haunted castle setting. There's lots of mutilated corpses here, and even Duke himself isn't safe. Yikes. And a secret level, Noctis Labyrinthus, which is accessed by pressing all of the hidden switches in the level shaft. The level shares its name with a real formation on Mars, as seen here in this picture taken by NASA's Viking 1 spacecraft. I also found the face on Mars. Awesome. Time to look at the music featured in the game. The composers have really outdone themselves here. Jokes aside, yes, apart from grab bag on the title screen, there's no music in this version of the game. I get that there were limitations with the cartridges, but GoldenEye has a full soundtrack, 0 Hour has music. In fact, I can't think of any other example of an N64 game that had to have all of its music removed. Surely they could have done something. I like to imagine there's a prototype version out there somewhere with a full soundtrack. A guy can dream. That said, I think the version of Grab Bag on the title screen is actually awesome. Well, it's the best track in the game. John St. John is also back to provide some new voice lines for Duke. Here are some examples.
Ew, who's your plastic surgeon? Hey, you're the disease and I'm the cure. In a perfect world, you'd already be dead.
I quite like the new additions. What do you think? Before we move on, there's something I wanted to mention. And I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. There's something to be said about the lack of music. It unintentionally adds a sense of severity to your mission, as though you're humanity's last remaining hope. It emphasizes just how alone you are in your attempt to save the Earth. In its absence, you also take more notice of the ambient sounds in the background. As a young kid, it sent chills down my spine. In April of 2009, a prototype version of the game surfaced online. Here you can see the cartridge, which was likely used to demonstrate the game at trade shows, or given to someone in the gaming press for early coverage. However, it's very close to final, and other than some minor differences, there's really not much to report on. But I did find some cool old pre-release screenshots of the game during a point where the weapons hadn't yet been changed, so I thought I'd include them here. Recreating this screenshot, we can find a few differences. Namely, in this early version, the heads-up display shows a cross behind Duke's health, which isn't present in the final game. There were also some extra textures added to the walls. Also, this display stand with Duke holding a burger was cut, but it's there in the PC game. This screenshot shows the kitchen area from Duke Burger in level 2. The only notable difference I could spot in this picture is that it has a stop sign here, likely as a placeholder until the final graphics were finished. Here are some more early screenshots showing an early version of the plasma cannon. And for reference, here's the final version. As we can see, it underwent some minor changes, such as a new lick of paint and a shorter barrel. Cool. To add to this, there's a bunch of unused stuff left in the code of the game that you might find interesting. For example, the babes were originally going to have an animation showing them breaking free, but in the end they opted to only ever use 2 frames. There's a bunch more unused stuff in the code. If you're interested in learning about it, I recommend checking out the cutting room floor. I'll leave links in the description. There's a total conversion of Duke 64, and I gotta say it kicks ass. It's exactly as you might expect. Duke Nukem 64, but for PC. Expect higher frame rates, better resolution, and of course, much better controls. I highly recommend this for new players. Please note, however, there's no multiplayer, so single player only, I'm afraid. But it's still the best way to enjoy the game in the modern era. There's not much more to say about it, but I did want to let you know that it exists. I'll leave links in the description if you're interested in playing this for yourself. So there you have it, guys. There's everything I could find out about Duke Nukem 64. Despite having no music, I think it's my favorite of the console ports. The frame rate is fair, and the expanded levels, new mechanics, and weapons just make it that much more interesting to revisit. The fact that they managed to fit Duke Nukem 3D onto a tiny Nintendo cartridge is super impressive to me. And while there's an argument to be made that the censorship ruins Duke's character, I personally feel that enough of the spirit is still here, and the game is fantastic regardless of the cuts. The bonus content more than makes up for it. But that's just my opinion. I'd like to know, what do you think of Duke 64? Which is your favorite Duke 3D port? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to Revenant Evil, or I'll kick your ass. Revenant Evil has balls of steel.